You choose your career, you curate your home, and you buy specific brands to signal your taste to the world. You tell yourself these are expressions of a unique, independent self. But the reality is less about choice and more about architecture. At your core, you operate as a survival machine. You are a biological vehicle built and programmed for one primary purpose: to preserve the genetic molecules that designed you. What we perceive as conscious decision-making is often just the output of a primitive primate dominance hierarchy. Our brains are hardwired to respond to social standing as if it were a matter of life or death. In this context, individuality is a helpful myth. It provides a sense of agency that masks a set of automated responses, triggered by the specific social problems we face every day. You are participating in a game you didn't realize you had entered. Your deepest desires are frequently the dictated requirements of an ancient biological system, rather than the products of your own mind. To understand the programming, we have to look at the hardware. The zoologist Richard Dawkins explains that natural selection favors genes that exert precise control over their hosts. A successful gene is a selfish gene, and it survives by making the best possible use of its environment. In our ancestral past, that environment was incredibly dangerous. Resources were scarce, and physical combat over food or territory carried a high risk of fatal injury. One bad fight could end a genetic line forever. Animals evolved a safer strategy, fighting for status instead of to the death. This created the dominance hierarchy. Lower-ranking members submit to avoid injury, biding their time to climb. Your genes built your brain as an executive computer to navigate this world. They couldn't pull the strings in real time, so they pre-programmed you with general strategies. The most powerful of these is the drive to ascend the hierarchy. High social rank wasn't just about ego, it meant priority access to food, access to territory, and to mates. In the strict logic of evolution, status was the currency that allowed your genes to survive into the next generation. You are biologically tethered to this system. Your nervous system is constantly weighing the odds of social escalation because for millions of years, falling behind meant evolutionary death. But the biological drive needs a map. The anthropologist Ruth Benedict observed that from the moment of birth, the customs of our community shape our experience. By the time we can talk, we have already accommodated our behavior to the patterns handed down to us. Society takes the vast range of human possibilities and selects only specific segments to reward. While one culture might ignore monetary value, another makes it the foundation of all behavior. Consider the Kwakiutl culture. In their society, dominance isn't measured by physical strength, but by a specific, arbitrary rule: the humiliation of one's fellows through the display of wealth. Success was defined by amassing possessions only to publicly destroy them. To outdo a rival, a leader might burn their own house or break their most valuable tools, proving they had so much status they could afford the waste. Even though this rivalry was clearly destructive, individuals could not free themselves from it. Their culture had defined superiority in such a way that the drive for status was inseparable from the act of destruction. Modern society operates on a similar logic. We channel our innate will to power into an obsessive pursuit of success and the constant multiplication of things we display to others. We are socially conditioned to crave objects we don't actually need, simply because our culture defined them as the new markers of dominance. Our primal biological drive for status has been hijacked by these arbitrary rules. It proves that our desires are often programmed by the culture around us, not by our own independent minds. This means our drive for survival has been severed from its original purpose. We are no longer competing for the resources needed to live, but for the symbols of having lived well. We amass wealth and goods not to satisfy human needs, but to use them as counters in a game of rivalry. Like the Kwakiutl destroying their tools, we spend our time and energy on markers of status that vanish as soon as the next trend arrives. This is the evolutionary glitch. We have a primal, absolute necessity for status, but our civilization has applied that drive to a loop of endless consumption. This cultural pattern turns our own biological architecture against us. It traps us in a contest where the rules are arbitrary, the markers of success are constantly shifting, and the competition never actually ends. That invisible system is modern consumerism. It is the weapon that has seamlessly hijacked your deepest biological drives. The sociologist Daniel Bell observed that mass production and the creation of new wants redefined the scope of human desire. We no longer fight nature for physical survival. Instead, we have traded that ancient battle for an unwinnable psychological competition. This illustrates what Bell calls the institutionalization of envy. Your primal, evolutionary need to ascend the hierarchy is weaponized against you. The modern economy is sustained by your perpetual dissatisfaction. It operates on the prodigal idea that private wants have no limit and no end. You are told that you are free, but what feels like a choice is often blind servitude to a system engineered to use your own instincts as a leash. To see how deep the trap goes, we have to look at the herd instinct that has governed human behavior for millennia. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche diagnosed the issue. The herd is terrified of true individuality. Society enforces a morality of mores, a tight social straitjacket designed to make every human being uniform, regular, and perfectly calculable. But modern capitalism faced a dilemma. To survive, it requires relentless, escalating consumption, which conflicted directly with the traditional ethic of restraint. The system solved this by replacing the logic of Puritan frugality with a social contract based on materialistic hedonism. The herd is now convinced that buying things is the ultimate expression of the untrammeled self. You are told you are unique simply by picking a lifestyle from a commercial catalog. You purchase expensive, trending items to signify status and assert dominance. In reality, you are submitting to the most predictable and uniform values of the herd. Bell identified a structural hypocrisy in this new capitalism that traps you in a psychological vice. During the day, the system demands that you be a highly disciplined, delayed gratification worker. This diagram illustrates the split. By night, the exact same system seduces you through advertising to become a hedonistic swinger, demanding instant gratification. When you participate in this cycle of waste, squandering resources on products of display, your innate human drive for power is absorbed and neutralized. By playing this game, you do not become a master of your fate. You become a calculable, predictable subject governed by an insatiable appetite. How then do you opt out of a game when the rules of status are culturally enforced everywhere you look? You must recognize the difference between playing the external, endless status game and playing the internal wealth game. The hidden status game relies on your unconscious participation. The moment you see the strings, you possess the power to cut them. Escaping requires abandoning the arena. Human psychological wants have no biological limit. As long as you seek validation there, you remain vulnerable to the puppet masters of the market. You must become what Nietzsche calls the sovereign individual, someone who has liberated himself from the morality of custom and possesses his own independent will. This internal wealth game is built on self-overcoming. It requires the rigorous discipline to look out upon others from your own center of value, rather than seeking their validation. As you define your worth through this internal strength, Your perception of objects shifts. You no longer see products as tools for signaling status, but as mere tools. The glittering baubles of consumerism lose their utility because they no longer have a purpose in your center of value. True independence is the terrifying freedom of absolute self-governance. You must look at the prizes of the world and recognize them for the traps they are. If you are ready to awaken from the illusion, join us at the Mind Expedition. Master your mind, or the system will gladly master it for you.